Just finished a limbic imprint recoding meditation with Nicole Moore from Birth Into Being Australia, and it is a journey where you basically get to recreate your own entry into the world, so your own birth. You get the opportunity in this process to communicate with your parents whilst you are in the womb, and to describe to them exactly how it is that you want to be born. And it's such a sweet process that really gives you, as that newborn baby or that baby coming into the world, everything that you need and desire. And after the meditation, I can feel it in my body, like I'm so relaxed. My nervous system has been so soothed just by doing that visualization. And I was thinking afterwards, what about those babies that are born in that gentle, loving, nurturing way, that do have all of their needs met as soon as they are born? So their primal needs, like that feeling of love and safety and connection. They are just set up with such an advantage when it comes to health and well-being, emotional well-being, for the rest of their life, because that is their first understanding of, like, what is it to be in physical form in the world separate from mother. And then I was thinking about the birth of my second child, my daughter, because that birthing experience for me was fairly close to everything that I desired. I didn't get it quite right, but it was close. And I thought this is a good time to tell the story of her birth. During my pregnancy with my daughter, I had a lot more confidence in myself, obviously, second child. I'd been through pregnancy and labour and birth before. I was already a mother, so I knew that I could handle that. And I was also at the time just finishing my qualifications for my doula training. So I had quite an in-depth knowledge and understanding of the process. But there was still fears that were coming up. Some of them had some relevance, but a lot of them were really not based in any reality. They were completely unfounded. And so I did a lot of meditation, pregnancy yoga. I did a lot of artwork to give form and expression to what was coming up for me. And journaling also, I found, was a very useful tool, not only to express what was going on for me, but also as a way of communicating with my unborn baby. When I got to the time of labour, by that time I felt like I was ready, I was confident, I was really feeling fearless. There was not a single doubt in my mind that the experience I was about to have was going to be beautiful, and I was able to birth in the way that I wanted to. I just knew it. I knew it on such a deep level. And that is that place where women can access, where there is power in birth, your own power. And when you match that up with baby's contribution and the universal energy that flows through you to bring new life into this world, that is when birth happens in all its magnificence. And so on the day of labour, in the morning, I started to feel a few niggles. I knew it was approaching. Actually, the night before, I'd had a dream that I could feel movement down in my cervix. So perhaps I was feeling it, I'm not sure, but it was very subtle, and I woke up thinking, oh, I've dreamt about that. So that day I went out. I felt very sociable. I went out into the village where I lived on a small Caribbean island, and I was talking with my friends and socializing for a good 3 or 4 hours in the morning. And then I started to feel like, no, I've had enough, I'm getting tired, I want to go home. So I went and spent the afternoon at home. My son was almost 3 years old. My mother had just arrived from Australia, so she was there visiting. And somewhere around dinner time, I started to feel a lot of movement. It was contractions, but they were very mild. I would, it was just the beginning. And at dinner time, I was still thinking, yeah, it might be tonight, might be tomorrow. And I had dinner with my family, and I watched a movie with my son after dinner. And somewhere around 8 o'clock, I think it was, I said to my husband, can you guys all go out for a walk, because I really feel like I need my space. My son was starting to go all crazy. He was running around being incredibly noisy, and it was starting to agitate me. So I felt like I just wanted everyone out of my space. And once everyone left, that's when labour really kicked in, when I was completely by myself. I turned down the lights, I lit some candles, I put on some music, and I was just walking around in my house. And after about 20 minutes or half an hour, I was certain that labour was going to be tonight. So I called my husband on his mobile and, said to him, it's time to come back now. And so everyone came back, and my mum packed a bag for my son, and they left and went off to stay at a friend's place for the night. Once they were gone, then it really, really kicked in. I remember one big wave, contraction, expansion, just massive, just hit me, and I was holding onto the door frame and trying to just spiral my hips to let that energy flow through me rather than holding onto it and trying to contain it. And I remember so clearly still the thought that went through my head was like, holy shit, if this is the beginning, how am I going to get to the end? And at that point, I really wanted to be in water. Water is really my element, and it is so helpful during labour. So I went into my bathroom and turned on the shower. I went into the shower. I'd planned a water birth, but unfortunately the pool was just out the front of the house, and the weather had turned cold a couple of days earlier, so that wasn't going to happen. So I went into the shower, and I was labouring in the shower. Contractions were coming fast and strong, and the word that I would use to describe them would be intense. I felt a couple of times a choice point where I could really take the sensations that were happening in my body as pain, or I could just take them as intensity. And I chose intensity because once we go into that feeling of pain and experiencing pain, we tend to associate or attach suffering to it. So I managed to stay out of that place of suffering. I was feeling this intensity. I could feel baby moving down. I could feel the massive rushes of energy that were coming through me, but I was remembering all the time, like, let that energy flow, let it flow. Don't try and hold on to it or fight it or control it in any way. And very shortly after I'd gone into the shower, I was looking out through the door, and I could see my husband sitting on the couch meditating. And then I was thinking, gosh, if you don't hurry up and get here, you're going to miss the whole thing. This baby was coming fast. And he showed up really just in time as her head was crowning, and I wasn't pushing. That's what I love so much about this birth. She was being birthed under the energy of the contraction or expansion that I prefer to call it, and that massive force that flows through you from, creation flows through you to bring your child into the world. I could feel that she was crowning, that her head was coming out. And just as my husband came into the bathroom to be there to help to catch her, he could see that her little hand was up against her face, and so she was getting stuck. And he just gently pushed her hand back inside, and then her head was born. And in the next contraction, her body was born. and that was it. Really 45 minutes after it had all really began. And I sat down in the shower with my baby, and there she was, magnificent. She was peaceful, she didn't cry, she didn't even open her eyes for the first half an hour. And she remained attached to her placenta, so we didn't cut the cord with her. She was a lotus baby. After a short while, I moved out into the lounge room and sat on a bed that was out there, and we called up my mum. This is about 45, 50 minutes after she'd left to go stay somewhere for the night, and we said, "Oh, would you like to come and meet your granddaughter?" And so Mum and my son arrived back before I'd birthed the placenta, and it was more than an hour, I don't remember exactly. And when I started having small contractions to birth the placenta, I was getting really agitated, so I got down into a squatting position, and then that happened quite easily. After a while, after our initial joy and celebrations, we all went to bed, and I just thought, wow, it really can be that simple. This birth was not removed from my home, it was not removed from regular life, it was not removed from the family. It really can be that way. And what happened in the weeks following my daughter's birth is another story. Living where I lived in the Caribbean, there were some community members who were not particularly impressed with my home birth, and I was called in together with my husband to the police station to receive a reprimanding from the chief of police. He was quite adamant that it was illegal to birth your baby at home, even though I believe that up until around 50 years prior, all babies had been born at home on that island. And he threatened us, that if we were to ever do something like that again, that we would be locked up and that our children would be taken away from us. So that was a whole other experience that followed on, that was dealing with the fears of society, and people in society and authority figures. I also had to take my daughter down to the hospital to get official recognition that she'd been born. Unfortunately, that was the only way to get a passport for her, because I was in a foreign country. The only way was to get the doctor to sign the paperwork. And when we went into the hospital, which was just a small clinic, I was pretty much ignored by the doctor, and my husband was congratulated for delivering the baby and commended for his skills. Anyway, that's a whole nother story as well. But what I really wanted to focus on in this video was just how straightforward, simple and easy birth can be. And when you really do the preparation and the work beforehand, when you do that during the pregnancy, getting clear with anything that needs to be dealt with, you will find that you can access that power and that place of knowing and trust, and just allow your baby to come into the world, and not needing anyone else to control it or manage it for you, because you are totally capable of doing it. You don't need anyone else's help. And home birthing is not for everyone, that's fine. A lot of women feel safer when they have others around them to help them, and whatever it is that makes you feel safe. I think that's the key thing. Women will birth well with fewer complications when they are in an environment that makes them feel safe and supported. And for me, that just happened to be on my own. So I hope you've enjoyed this story. Of course, there's a lot of other bits that go along with it, but being a short video, I can't get sidetracked. I'm trying to focus and just tell the main points. I've got heaps more to share with you, so please stick around with me at Fearless Mama for information and tools and guidance on emotional well-being during pregnancy and birth. Thanks for being here. See you soon.